Diddy's trial wasn't just about crimes, it ripped open the music industry's darkest secrets. From secret tapes, to cash payoffs, to terrifying testimony from people closest to him. What came out in that courtroom left everyone stunned. And trust me, this is only the beginning. The courtroom revelations from Diddy's trial were nothing short of jaw-dropping. What began as a high-profile celebrity case quickly spiraled into a spectacle that exposed layers of secrets many people never imagined would surface. Some of the darker truths were long-whispered rumors finally dragged into the light, forcing the public to confront what had been quietly circulating in industry backrooms for years. Others, however, were blindsided, so disturbing and unexpected that even those who thought they knew the story found themselves stunned into silence. What makes this trial so shocking is not only the nature of the allegations themselves but also the sheer scale of them. These weren't just minor indiscretions or tabloid-style scandals. They were accounts of violence, intimidation, manipulation, and cover-ups, painted vividly through the testimonies of people who had once lived in Diddy's orbit. Each voice added another layer to the picture: bodyguards, assistants, musicians, even family members. One after another, they stepped forward to describe a world behind the glitz and glamour of the music industry, a world filled with fear, secrecy, and power games. For many observers, it felt almost cinematic, as though the trial itself was being pulled from the script of a dark Hollywood thriller. Yet the difference here is that nothing was fictional. Every shocking revelation was delivered under oath, in a courtroom packed with jurors, lawyers, and reporters ready to carry each word back to the world outside. People watching the case unfold weren't simply hearing gossip from blogs or whispers on social media anymore. They were hearing sworn testimony, facts locked into the official record. That distinction gave the proceedings a chilling weight. The entertainment industry has always had its shadows, stories of excess, feuds, and unchecked egos. But what emerged in this trial seemed to stretch beyond the usual scandals. It reached into the realms of organized crime, federal investigations, and elaborate cover. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just about a star with too much power and too little accountability. It was about an entire system that allowed those patterns of abuse and control to fester unchecked for decades. Even more unsettling was the way celebrity culture collided with the testimonies. High-profile names were dropped casually throughout the trial, reminding everyone that these weren't isolated incidents in private rooms. They happened in spaces where music icons, actors, and moguls mingled. From stories of private jets to encounters at Prince's mansion, the scope of Diddy's alleged actions painted a picture of chaos lurking just behind the red carpet smiles and flashing cameras. For the jurors, the task was enormous. They weren't just being asked to weigh evidence. They were being asked to sift through years of rumor, speculation, intimidation, and silence, and to separate truth from the myths that have long surrounded one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop. The revelations were shocking not only because of what they revealed about Diddy, but also because of what they suggested about the industry at large. How many other stories had been buried? How many others stayed quiet out of fear? In the chapters ahead, we'll explore the most chilling details that surfaced during this historic trial, from hidden recordings and violent outbursts to secret testimonies and long-buried industry rumors. Each revelation adds another piece to the puzzle, revealing not only the man at the center of the trial but also the culture that allowed him to rise and thrive in the first place.
Present a lot of stuff that would have made sure that he was gone forever, rather than just being gone to November. And it's not going to be November. See, that sentencing is coming. Maybe that's really the problem. Maybe that's why people got so much to say about whistleblowers and truth tellers. Maybe y'all need to find a way to drag us all the way down and to drag us all the way to filth. You think that that's going to be the thing that springs the diddler from the pigeon coop he's being held in. Because I'm going to tell you something right now. After October 3rd, there's going to be a lot of people who's going to be quaking in their boots. There's going to be a lot of knees knocking. Because the longer he has to stay in there, people are going to wonder, how long is it going to be before he turns into his dear old dad and just starts snitching on it?
The first major shockwave to hit the courtroom came from the testimony of one of Diddy's former bodyguards. According to him, he personally witnessed Diddy sit down with a mountain of cash, $100,000 in total, to purchase and destroy a USB drive. That drive allegedly contained hotel security footage capturing a disturbing night between Diddy and Cassie. The bodyguard insisted he saw Diddy carefully count each bill to ensure the payoff was airtight. Yet, despite the payout, the footage didn't remain hidden forever. Years later, it resurfaced and is now at the heart of the trial. When this revelation was shared, jurors reportedly leaned in, sensing it could be one of the prosecution's most compelling pieces of evidence. Still, Jaguar Wright has suggested that what made it into the courtroom might only be a fraction of the explosive material that exists.
Of people in the Shluminati is to pretend like none of it's real, to pretend like none of it happens, to keep the secret, to make it all seem like, oh no, that's not happening, that's not happening, that's not happening. Isn't that exactly what's happening now?
Sorry.
HSI runs up onto multiple properties, and they collected all kinds of things that never made it to that courtroom, did it? Not one mention of a firearm, not one mention, even though some of the testimony said that he carried firearm.
What?
The way Kid Cudi's car, the way that whole situation happened, I mean, it was on court document. People were sitting there talking about it, and they still trying to act like that.
The case grew even heavier when a Homeland Security agent took the stand, an unmistakable sign of just how strong the evidence against Diddy appeared to be.
Security agent that raided Diddy's Miami house is testifying against him. He didn't get a lot of time on the stand today because court is about to end, but we will go ahead and talk about what he said, and then I will add these parts into his full testimony tomorrow. They asked this Homeland Security agent what time they raided Diddy's Miami home, and they said after 3 p.m. They said, why did you raid it so late? And they said, because we were tipped off that Diddy and his family were about to leave the country. And I'm sure you guys remember when they raided Diddy's houses, he wasn't there. They actually caught him at the airport getting ready to get on his private jet. And this is when Homeland Security arrested one of Diddy's right-hand men, Paul, for narcotic offenses. Then they asked this Homeland Security agent what they all found at Diddy's Miami property. And he talked about the weapons with defaced serial numbers being loaded and all of that information. He also said he found toys, if you get what I mean, and he also found Astroglide.
When Kid Cudi took the stand, the entire courtroom fell silent. He explained that his friendship with Cassie sparked consequences that went far beyond industry rivalries. One night, his prized Porsche sleek custom ride he cherished erupted into flames after someone hurled a Molotov cocktail into his driveway. Cudi admitted that the image of his burning car is something he'll never erase from memory. But the destruction didn't stop there. He recounted how Diddy once broke into his home, tore apart his wrapped Christmas presents, and left his living room in shambles. Cudi confessed he was deeply hesitant to testify, fearful of Diddy's reputation for retaliation, but ultimately chose to reveal the truth.
I'm here to support Cassie, and Cassie is my friend, and I love her, and I want to see her do well. When I saw her get married, I was so happy for her, that she found someone, her person. When I saw that she was having kids, I was like, oh, this is so awesome. You know what I mean? Like, I've always just wanted to see her, thrive and do well and be happy, because I know she was living a nightmare. And I just was there to support her. That's what kind of gave me peace with it when I sat down in that chair. It was just about, damn, I don't want to do this, to being like, oh man, I gotta hold homegirl down and
Picture being at the very peak of your career, when everything you had worked for finally seemed to be within reach, only to be suddenly dragged into a storm of turmoil so extreme it felt surreal. That was the sense many in the courtroom described as they listened to testimony that dismantled the glamorous image once surrounding Diddy and replaced it with accounts that were deeply unsettling. For jurors, it was no longer about whispers traded in back rooms or speculative blog posts. What they heard inside that courtroom carried the weight of sworn testimony, and with every word spoken under oath, the atmosphere shifted. At first, there had been a feeling of curiosity in the air, the natural buzz that follows any trial involving a global celebrity, but that curiosity gave way to something heavier, almost suffocating, as rumor transformed into verified claims. These weren't just outsiders speculating about Diddy's reputation. These were insiders, people who had lived in his orbit, recounting what they had seen, heard, and endured. For many, this difference was everything. It wasn't simply, he said, she said anymore. It was evidence, delivered in a way the justice system could not ignore. Among the most startling testimonies came from Capricorn Clark, a woman who had worked closely with Diddy during the years he was romantically involved with Cassie. Her role at the time positioned her at the crossroads of his personal and professional worlds. She wasn't a distant acquaintance or someone speaking from vague recollections. She was in the room, in the moment, and her testimony reflected that closeness. Clark described an incident that left the courtroom holding its breath. She claimed that one night, Diddy's temper reached terrifying new heights. According to her, he forced her into a car at gunpoint. A scene that could have been pulled straight from a crime thriller but was recounted as a lived reality. The reason, she testified, was chillingly petty, yet explosively dangerous. She had failed to inform him that Cassie was spending time with Kid Cudi. In Diddy's world, that omission was treated as betrayal. Inside the car, she said, Diddy made his intentions clear. He allegedly told her outright that they were going to kill Kid Cudi that night. The words hung in the courtroom like smoke, heavy and impossible to ignore. For Clark, the ride that followed was the longest of her life. Every passing streetlight only amplified her fear that the threats might turn into action. Her testimony painted a picture of a man consumed by jealousy and control, willing to escalate to unimaginable extremes over something as simple as Cassie's friendships. The impact of her words was profound. Jurors leaned forward, reporters scribbled furiously, and observers exchanged glances that reflected their disbelief. Clark's account wasn't just about one frightening night. It symbolized a larger pattern of intimidation and volatility. It also hinted at the immense pressure faced by those who worked closest to Diddy, people trapped between their professional duties and the personal dangers of crossing him. Her testimony also raised broader questions. If someone as visible and connected as Capricorn Clark could be placed in such a harrowing position, what about others in Diddy's circle who had less power, less visibility, and fewer options to escape? The courtroom seemed to recognize that what Clark described might not have been an isolated event, but rather part of a much larger web of fear and control. By the time she stepped down from the stand, the atmosphere in the courtroom had transformed yet again. What began as curiosity, and shifted to shock, had now settled into something darker. A sobering realization that the stories surrounding Diddy were not exaggerated tabloid tales, but first-hand accounts of violence, coercion, and threats. And Capricorn Clark's testimony would become one of the most unforgettable pieces of that puzzle.
It was crazy, man. Like, you know, man, in the moment, it was just crazy. Like, I had a hard time understanding if it was reality. Like, I was like, am I in a movie? What the f is going on? But it was, you know, just chaotic and intense. And, you know, I wasn't like I was already out of my mind dealing with my own personal. So, I was really just like, okay, you know, like, I just was willing to walk into the fire and so it was just I always thought about it before all this stuff happened and it came out again. I just, over the years, I just thought about it as like just some wild that happened in my rock and roll life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just, you know, it was just so great.
On the stand, Capricorn Clark described a night that left her fearing she wouldn't make it out alive. She testified that Diddy forced her into a car at gunpoint after learning she hadn't told him about Cassie and Kid Cudi spending time together. During that ride, she claimed, Diddy bluntly told her they were going to kill Cudi that night. For Clark, it was the longest, most terrifying drive of her life. Her testimony tied directly into broader allegations, including arson and kidnapping charges that fall under the RICO case being built against Diddy. Prosecutors also introduced testimony from a former assistant who appeared under the pseudonym Mia. Cassie confirmed she knew Mia, and so did Cassie's mother. Even Don Richard of Danity Kane identified Mia as one of Diddy's former assistants, further connecting the threads of who worked closest to him during that turbulent era. Some believe this fourth victim could in fact be Capricorn Clark herself. But the revelations didn't stop there. One assistant recalled a surreal night at Prince's private home, where she and Cassie had been invited to watch the music legend perform. What should have been an unforgettable experience for its magic turned into a nightmare. Outside the event, Diddy allegedly lost control, causing such a commotion that Prince's own security had to step in and calm the situation. Imagine that security at Prince's house, in a room full of music royalty, forced to intervene in Diddy's outburst. Another former assistant painted a chilling picture of life with Diddy, this time aboard a private jet. Trapped mid-flight with nowhere to go, he testified that Diddy clutched a glass of whiskey while tensions escalated with Cassie. At one point, Cassie reportedly cried out, "Isn't anybody seeing this?" Yet, according to his account, the flight crew sat paralyzed, unwilling to intervene, leaving her to face the ordeal alone. Commentators like Jaguar Wright have argued that this silence wasn't surprising. In her view, the industry is saturated with a culture of violence so pervasive that even when witnesses see abuse unfold, few dare to speak up.
Resumed today in the federal trial of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. And today, one of the Combs' former assistants took the stand.
Okay, Fox 5's Lisa Evers was inside the courtroom. And Lisa, it was another day of intense testimony.
It was definitely intense testimony, Natasha and Steve. Former Diddy aide Capricorn Clark was on the stand talking about violence she witnessed, as well as the hardship that she endured after she was fired by Combs in 2012. She broke down in tears when she recalled how she dedicated her life to Sean Diddy Combs and considered herself a type of protector.
If the trial hadn't already felt like a Hollywood drama, the testimony involving Sugi Knight pushed it over the edge. One former assistant recounted a late-night trip to a Los Angeles diner in 2008 that nearly reignited the infamous East Coast-West Coast feud. According to her, the moment Diddy spotted Sugi Knight nearby, panic set in. He rushed back to his car, arming himself not with one but 3 guns, bracing for what he believed could be a deadly encounter. Fortunately, no shots were fired, but the possibility of a random run-in exploding into violence had the courtroom on edge. For many, it was a chilling reminder of the long-standing animosity between the two men. That animosity, some claim, wasn't just about music. Industry voices like Gandil have alleged that Diddy harbored a deep resentment toward Sugi for becoming involved with the mother of his child. Combined with years of whispered talk about surveillance, informants, and government investigations surrounding both figures, the testimony only added another tangled layer to the story.
Go to Diddy parties, which is where people like me step in. To walk mother out! Cause ain't nobody stopping me when I come. Why would they talk about it? Who is there to go to? Who's gonna help them? What HR department do you know of that works for any of these labels?
Yeah.
When have you ever heard of a sexual harassment suit being publicly acknowledged in the entertainment industry at all? Never. Not in entertainment.
Tupac. Remember that one? That was.
He was the only one.
Yeah.
You saw how that turned out.
Yeah.
No, guilty.
That's why they do it. To make you an example. To remind you what they're willing to do to keep things the way they want them. It's intimidation. Can't go to the authorities. They're all bought and paid for. You could try to get a special prosecutor, but they'll just pay somebody to reassign him to another.
Jaguar Wright even backed up the claim that Diddy had ties to federal informants, saying the suspicion ran in the family that his father had been an informant as well. In another moment, journalists bumped into Dapper Dan in Harlem and asked him what he made of everything swirling around Diddy. Dan said he'd known the family for years and suggested the behavior people were seeing wasn't exactly new. He pointed to Diddy's father as a controversial figure, a man who'd been both an informant and a problematic actor in the criminal world. Street chatter in Harlem added an even stranger layer. Some people were murmuring that the woman Diddy called his mother was actually his aunt, and that his biological mother was no longer alive. Those whispers circulated alongside the testimony, adding to the trial's fog of rumor and memory. One of the trial's most emotional moments came when Cassie's mother took the stand. She told the court she had once tried to confront Diddy in person after he refused to return Cassie's stolen phone, a direct, painful episode that underscored how personal and immediate these allegations felt to the people closest to the alleged victims.
Sermon, he was the reason why, Diddy was beating Misa. Yeah, that's crazy, man. I didn't know that, man. And she was talking to Suge Knight at one point, right?
Oh, yeah. We had just got through, I think we were looking for Kim. And Kim wasn't home. So if Kim not home, we don't go home. So we jump into club after club after club until Diddy finds her. So then he'll have the babysit call her and find out where she at or whatever, this, that, and the third. And then we would have to go to the club that she at. And he wasn't even, he never stopped dating Kim. No, I don't care who he was with. It could have been with J-Lo. It could have been with whoever. He never stopped dating Kim. Kim couldn't date or be with nobody. She just couldn't. So now, this damn wolf, I guess he was holding this magazine in his pocket or whatever, and it was like a brochure or something like that, but it was Death Row. And it was Suge Knight with Misa. Now, when I told this story, nobody believed that, because they don't believe shit I say until it comes out in pictures or videos. It had Suge Knight next to Misa. Suge had the baby Misa had Justin in her arms, and Suge Knight was just like holding Misa, I think, like this, holding Misa. It was a friendly picture. But on the bottom capture of it, it said, what the East Coast won't take care of, the West Coast will. Yo, Wolf showed that to Puff. You could see veins coming through his forehead, through his neck and everything. He blew a stack. It was crazy. So, Misa was everything but a child of God. But you gotta realize, Puff wasn't giving her the money that she needed to take care of Justin.
Cassie's mother went on to say she had personally witnessed the aftermath of Diddy's violence, recalling the marks and bruises she saw on her daughter's body. For the jurors, her testimony hit hard. It wasn't just colleagues or friends speaking anymore. It was family. Even former members of Diddy's own music groups came forward. Dawn Richard, once part of Danity Kane, recounted a chilling night at Cassie's apartment. She testified that Diddy exploded in anger over something as trivial as eggs not being cooked quickly enough. Richard described how he dragged Cassie upstairs while she sat frozen in terror. Hours later, Diddy returned with Cassie, presented both women with flowers, and chillingly warned that people go missing when they talk. Her account highlighted the way Diddy wielded both charm and intimidation, using fear as a tool to silence those around him. It also reminded the court of how far he had already gone in the past to bury the truth, just as he had managed during the infamous Shine trial back in 1999.
Cassie Ventura's mother, Regina Ventura, which I think was really important here, she corroborated almost, exactly to a T the testimony that Cassie gave regarding Sean Combs's potential and threat to release 2 sex tapes, one on Christmas Day. She also corroborated that she had actually taken pictures and photographs of Cassie's abuse. So that goes a really long way in terms of corroborating and bolstering.
Prosecutors had seen this playbook before, and that familiarity made the unfolding events inside the courtroom even more unsettling. In past cases, the truth had slipped away, buried beneath a mix of intimidation, well-placed bribes, and the paralyzing fear of retaliation. Witnesses had gone silent, evidence had conveniently disappeared, and the momentum of justice had evaporated before it could reach its target. For prosecutors who had watched this cycle repeat itself over the years, there was an air of frustration. Many believed Diddy was once again leaning on the same tactics, controlling the narrative by silencing those who dared to speak. But then came Cassie's testimony, and it landed like a thunderclap. If earlier accounts had raised eyebrows, her words left the entire courtroom rattled to its core. For years, she explained, she had been pressured into orchestrating and participating in disturbing private gatherings, not glamorous parties or harmless escapades, but deeply troubling encounters involving male escorts. Diddy had a name for these events, freak-offs. The term alone carried a weight of casual cruelty, reducing something that had left her emotionally scarred into a glib nickname. Cassie testified that these weren't isolated incidents, but part of a pattern that stretched across years of her life. They took place in hotel rooms and private spaces, and each time, she said, Diddy would not only push her into participating but also record the encounters on camera. The humiliation didn't stop there. According to her, he degraded her afterward, stripping away not just her privacy but her sense of self, piece by painful piece. For the jurors listening, the testimony was more than shocking, it was haunting. It revealed a side of celebrity life far removed from the glimmer of red carpets and award shows. Behind the music, behind the public image of a mogul and entrepreneur, Cassie painted the picture of a man exerting total dominance over her life, blurring the line between control and cruelty until nothing was left of her autonomy. The revelations also raised pressing questions. Why record these encounters? What purpose did it serve beyond humiliation? Almost immediately, speculation began to swirl both inside and outside the courtroom. Many believed this wasn't just about personal control. Instead, it seemed to be part of a calculated strategy, a way for Diddy to stockpile damaging material on influential figures. If powerful people attended these gatherings or became entangled in them, the recordings would serve as leverage, a form of insurance that ensured their silence. This theory was not hard for the public to imagine. The entertainment industry has long been dogged by whispers of secrets buried behind closed doors, of blackmail quietly shaping careers and alliances. Cassie's account gave those rumors a tangible form, connecting them to someone with both the reach and resources to pull it off. Her testimony carried more than the weight of her personal suffering. It suggested an entire network of manipulation, one where intimacy was weaponized and trust was destroyed. By filming and storing these encounters, Diddy allegedly positioned himself not only as a participant but as a puppeteer, controlling what others could or could not say. For Cassie, telling this story under oath was a staggering act of courage. It required her to revisit years of trauma in a room filled with strangers, lawyers, and jurors, knowing full well the kind of power Diddy still wielded. Yet her willingness to speak shifted the tone of the trial. Suddenly, the case wasn't just about whether Diddy had committed crimes of violence or intimidation. It was about whether an entire system of abuse built on silence, fear, and leverage could finally be dismantled. And for the courtroom, it was clear, this was no longer only about rumors or speculation. This was about power, control, and the darkest ways they could be used. Cassie's words had cracked open a door, revealing just how much might be hiding behind
Halo
it.
jumps in their car, and Diddy has the gun on him, and he tries to bribe the driver.
He throws it out, and it lands on a guy's car. And then they get pulled over the next precinct up, the Midtown North precinct. They're brought into the precinct. Now, that's where I heard that Parker might have passed the phone in, when they were at that police station. And
because Derek Parker in my interview said that he drove J-Lo and Puffy to the precinct after the shooting.
Oh, okay.
That's what he said.
Yeah, so he probably drove him from the one precinct there. So anyway, that was an allegation a detective had told me. But yeah, so this guy's sitting in his car, and a gun lands on his roof or his whatever. And they don't put it together, though, for like a day or so, because, I guess the way the guy reported, he reported in a different precinct, whatever happens, but they put it together. They tried to bribe that guy. This female security guard got bribed, and she said, "Oh, I fell on him right after the shooting, and I didn't feel a gun against him." I mean, come on. People changed their stories. There was a lot going on with that case. He should have been held accountable for what went on in that club.
Right, because I remember when the police
started the whole thing. I mean,
well, did he start it, or? Because I had heard that a bunch of guys
Just when the courtroom drama seemed maxed out, more big names kept getting pulled into the orbit. Britney Spears, Michael B. Jordan, and even whispers involving Prince surfaced during testimony. Cassie said her 21st birthday was star-studded, Britney included, and that Diddy once accused her of being too close to Michael B. Jordan, a charge that only fanned the flames of jealousy. Rumors swirled outside the trial too. Some suggested Diddy might be cooperating with federal prosecutors to trade information for leniency, possibly even about other major figures. On the stand and off, the talk turned ugly and pointed, with witnesses and onlookers urging him to talk about names they wanted exposed. One repeated, fevered line of questioning touched on Kathy Corona, White A theory about her death and alleged ties to other high-profile people, and it sparked laughter, stunned silences, and more insinuations in court. The spectacle left one clear impression. The case isn't just about the alleged acts themselves, it's become a magnet for gossip, grudges, and conspiracy. And people keep asking if even deeper secrets about Diddy are still waiting to surface.